All right, rigid metal conduit. I'm not going to cover the requirements of rigid metal conduit. It is contained in the textbook, but it's the same thing that we covered in IMC. So let's go over to Article 348, flexible metal conduit. A raceway or circular cross-section made of a helically wound, formed, or interlocked metal strip. I apologize that right now, the next few slides, and as we go along, this is just mechanical. It isn't very complicated. It isn't controversial. It's just, and it's stuff that you do every single day, but not everybody has used every wiring method. So just be patient. If you understand this, just let us go through the motion here. So I think most of you people have seen that. All right, we're not going to cover 348.10 uses permitted because it says you can install it what? Exposed or concealed. 348.12 talks about uses not permitted. It can't be in a wet location. It's not permitted to be exposed to deteriorating effects on the insulation of the conductors. And it cannot be underground or embedded in concrete. Nor is it permitted where it's subject to physical damage. So that, I think it's pretty clear. That is outdoors in a wet location. That would be a violation of code. Now, it's a violation of code now, but years ago it wasn't a violation of code because years ago you could put flexible metal conduit outdoors in a wet location as long as the conductors were insulated for a wet location. So you ran THWN or THHN/THWN. So that's why you might see some flex outside. At one time it was permitted, but it's not permitted anymore. Let's go to 348.20, trade size. Minimum trade size is 3/8 inch and up to 6 feet for utilization equipment. Now, when you get into flex metal conduit, I've actually seen some flex metal conduit. I think it's called
Greenfield?
No, it's a super flex, and it was for.
Oh, that sounds
Super flex.
But it was designed for countertop, I think, like in jewelry stores, where it needed to have really, really super flexible bending radius. And so, is it called Superflex? Because I call it Superflex.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
No, that's what it's called, Superflex, and it's the banding is much narrower, so it's able to bend a lot better.
Yes, and I don't know if it makes it above 3/8
that
inch. I
stuff.
used it for 3/8 inch, but I don't know if they make it in larger than that. But somebody can go on the internet, maybe you can look it up and find out. So, they do make different types of flex metal conduit. Now, there's aluminum of flex metal conduit, and there's steel flex metal conduit. Pros and cons. I like aluminum because it's lighter. I mean, just that simple. It's lighter. But same thing with MC cable and armor cable. I think it can come in aluminum sheath as well, aluminum interlock, as well as steel interlock. And my understanding is that steel, of course, for the MC cable or armor cable is a lot heavier in weight because it's going to be steel compared to aluminum. But aluminum, I think when the guys got done pulling it all day long, there's something on the aluminum itself that kind of gets you dirty. There's probably some kind of solvent on the aluminum itself. Flex metal conduit can be as small as 3/8 inch and up to 6 feet, though, only. Trimming, 348.28, trimming. The cut ends of flex metal conduit must be trimmed to remove the rough edges. But this is not necessary when fittings are threaded into the convolutions. So, when you have flex metal conduit and you cut it, then you're going to have a way of removing the rough edges. But we have these fittings that can thread right into it, and then that's probably an easy way. What do you do, Brian? What kind of fittings do you use for flex? Do you thread those in, or do you just...
Nope, we use regular Greenfield connectors.
What about, I mean, they have these push-in connectors. I think those are cool.
We've seen those. We've seen the thread-in ones. Really, it's just an accessibility problem. It's not that we wouldn't use them. It's just you have to have the supply house that stocks them to be able to buy them. They are available in some of the big box stores, and we buy them, occasionally there, but it's just not something that we have available.
Let's go to 348.30, securing and supporting of flex metal conduit. I think we kind of got the concept, how it works. You're going to have to secure it within 12 inches of termination. And then in this case here, it's every 4.5 feet. It's going to have to be secured and supported. But then if you run it horizontally, the framing members, then it's considered secured and support. Now there's an exception that if you need to go to something that requires flexibility after you've installed it, then you can go up to certain distances unsupported, depending upon the size of the flexible metal conduit. Half-inch to 3-inch, half-inch to 1.25 inches can be up to 3 feet. 1.5 inches to 2-inch can be up to 4 feet. And 2.5-inch flexible metal conduit and larger can be up to 5 feet. Maybe we can put those distances on the other side of the actual trade raceway side. So this right here is showing unsupported flexible metal conduit, and that's fine as long as it meets those requirements. Here's an example of unsupported flexible metal conduit. This might be this looks like it's some pretty flexible flex here. So that might be super flex. So maybe that super flex comes in sizes larger than I realize. Same rule we've seen previously. When you're above a suspended ceiling and you're supplying luminaires or other equipment, then you can go up to 6 feet unsupported from the last point of support. And the last point of support is considered the fitting. And they just added that clarification in the 2014 code. Horizontal, if you run flexible metal conduit horizontally through framing members, and if you can have it supported at intervals not exceeding 4.5 feet, then Ryan, I guess this graphic might need to be adjusted, because then in that case, it's considered supported and secured. Is that what the code is saying if I go through flexible metal conduit on 348.30B?
It doesn't really say either. Horizontal runs of flexible metal conduit supported by openings through framing members at 4.5 feet and securely fastened within 12 inches of termination shall be permitted. So it says it's fine. Yeah, so
It's fine.
However you want to call it.
They're not consistent as they talk about this, and so it just causes, okay, that's the way it is. So this is fine. 348.60 bonding, where flexibility is necessary to minimize the transmission of vibration or to provide flexibility equipment that requires movement after the installation, an equipment grounding conductor wire type is required. So if you need if you don't need an equipment grounding conductor in that, but you need flexibility to minimize transmission, well, then you need an equipment grounding conductor in there. Or if you don't need an equipment grounding conductor, but you need to have movement after the installation, well, then you need an equipment grounding conductor. The rules on equipment grounding conductor is going to be contained in 250.118, I think it's paren 5, as it relates to flexible metal conduit. That an equipment grounding conductor is not required for this flexible metal conduit if the raceway has circuit conductors protected not greater than 20 amperes, and the total length of that flexible metal conduit within that circuit does not exceed 6 feet. Take a look at this graphic right here. That's 250.118.5. Brian, are you guys in a habit of just simply pulling an equipment grounding conductor inside a flexible metal conduit regardless of whether or not?
We are, and it's just from personal experience. I've had some bad experiences with using the flex as the
equipment grounding conductor.
Yeah, just personally.
Okay, let's go back in this graphic here. So even though the code might not require it here, you're saying not a design. I mean, you can do that because it's your money to put an equipment grounding conductor. We got to go to 251.18 paren 5 for those rules.